I was going to wait because I didn't know if they were going to do some kind of intro. I assumed that they would, but we're getting a little bit past the hour, so I want to go ahead and get started because I have a lot of material to go through. Give her a round of applause. My name is Tracy Harris. I work on a volunteer basis for the atheist community of Austin, and probably am most popularly associated with their outreach vehicle, the Atheist Experience. And I came down here this weekend with Matt Dillahunty and Russell Glasser, both of who are hosts of the program. And I think most people are familiar with Matt. He does a lot of public speaking and debates. And when they scheduled, Russell was concerned because he said, well, Friday afternoon, he's like, I'm speaking Friday afternoon, and that's a work week, and we're getting in from the airport, we're coming down there, and I don't know if anybody's going to be there. And it turned out this room was packed. And so now it's the end of the conference, and it's not as packed because a lot of people have already left. So I think Russell's fears were unfounded, and I probably should have been concerned, hey, is everybody going to stay for the afternoon talks on Sunday? But I'm glad for those of you who were able to stay. I'm going to make the assumption that the people who had to leave were heartbroken that they weren't going to see my talk. And a few of them, told me they were sorry they wouldn't be able to make it, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm really glad for everyone that came out. I like to remind people that for a conference like this, a lot of times the speakers hear people coming up all the time, shaking hands, saying, thank you so much for coming out. We're so glad that you came here. And I want to say that don't sell yourself short, because if we came here and nobody else did, it would be really awkward talking to empty seats. So everybody here makes the conference. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands the importance of every person that's here. It's not about the speakers, it's about the community. So since I'm mostly related with the Atheist Experience as far as what the public understands about my volunteer work, I want to just explain a little bit about what that is. Probably most people are familiar with it, but for those of you who aren't, it's a show where we have two atheists that sit at a table and they answer phone calls. And then during the week, we get floods and floods of email that we also answer. And the hosts generally are there every week, and the co-hosts appear on a rotation basis. So for me, I show up 1 hour every about a month and a half. And what I do there is help answer phone calls. And the atheist community of Austin does not have an official volunteer operator. They have an answering machine. And so we are the one time during the week where you can actually call the association and talk to a member live. So I'm a nonprofit association volunteer phone operator that gets put on a monitor, and that's why people know me. Because there's a lot of nonprofit phone operators that work a lot of hours on a volunteer basis, more than 1 hour every month and a half, who don't get put on a monitor and no one knows who they are. And some of them are doing very important work, so please don't overinflate the work that we're doing. And I appreciate when people thank us for it. I can't speak for every host or co-host of the show, but for me, I appreciate when people thank me, but I like to remind them that we have people in the background that are an entire cast, our entire crew of people that work to put the show out, and they give up every single Sunday, while I get a month and a half, about a month and a half of my weekends free. They are there every weekend, and they are doing this. And we post their names at the end of every show, and what I like to do to show my point to people is to say, can you name one of the crew? And nobody ever can name the crew. So just FYI, they work far more hard than I do, and they get very little credit for it. So sometimes you get more publicity than some people that work a lot harder, and I want to make people understand that about what I do. But what I do also do is answer emails occasionally. We get emails to our list, and what we're going to be looking at today are some trends in the emails. And I want to talk about how religion and religious family values impact people when that family doesn't quite agree on religion. And what I see are a lot of trends in how people are treated. This doesn't really apply to all religions or all branches of religion. It seems to be a more conservative religious problem. For the more liberal religions, people that are like what Hema was talking about earlier, people that are involved because they like community activity. They might not even be listening to anything supernatural about the sermons. They might just be, I want to work at the food pantry, or I want to go do the homeless, help and whatever we're doing. And a lot of times these people use the church as a source of community, but also a source of family bonding. So you bring the kids and you have children's activities and you have, things that you get to do with your spouse and things that you get to do with the family. And they might even have activities outside of the church where you can bring the family and they have like a softball league or they have whatever. But there's all these fun things that people can do that the church provides in these cases where they actually can be used as a tool to help cohesion in the family, if it's a healthy family, and if they're putting family first, and they're looking at the religious group or the church as like a mechanism to help them find things to do together as a family, that can actually help a family bond. And in those cases, a lot of times they wouldn't really care if not everybody agreed about the existence of God. That particular type of family might not be ripped apart by something like that. But that's not the families that I'm talking about. And the people that are involved in that kind of Christianity are not usually the people who are shoving their views about family values down everybody else's throat. That's the more conservative religions, the religious right, the fundamentalists, right, the evangelicals. They're the ones that want to convert the world to their perspective of how the families should work. And they do this by flip-flopping what's going on with these families. So you have a family situation where a healthy family uses things that could be church provided or they could be other provided. So let's say I have a little girl and I'm not sports minded and she turns 8 years old and she is dying to play soccer. I'm not going to say, yeah, I really hate soccer, so not going to happen. Little Sarah, you're not going to play soccer. Or maybe you can check with Cindy's mom and she drives are there, but I don't really care about coming to see your games because I just don't like soccer. Right? That would be a really crappy parent. And so the idea would be, I don't really like soccer, but my kid is crazy about soccer, so I need to learn about soccer. I need to learn to like soccer. I need to go to those soccer games, and I need to be the soccer mom, right? And if I have little Timmy and he wants to play piano, then okay, I don't know how to play piano, but let's find you someone who does. We'll get you piano lessons. We'll go to your recitals. And you know what? Sarah doesn't really like piano, and she's annoyed that you practice all the time. But she's coming to your recital too. Sarah, I know you hate it, but you're coming because this is your brother, and it's his recital. He worked really hard, and we're going as a family to support your brother because we love your brother. And you're going to Sarah's soccer game, even though you're going to probably sit there gaming the whole time, because you love your sister and you're going to go to that game. So we drag ourselves together and we make an effort to support each other, even though sometimes the thing that we're supporting is for this member of the family rather than for us. And then sometimes it's for us and other people come to support us that maybe that's not their favorite thing. But you make these compromises and you learn and you teach your children and you teach the family members that this is what you do. Because you're family, you're going to support each other. Okay, you're going to support each other. And you're going to use these as tools. You're going to use the things that the family members are involved in and are interested in order to bring the rest of the family together. And there may be times when something's really, like Sarah turns 14 and she'd rather be with her friends and usually do the family camping trip, and she doesn't ever like the camping trip, so it's like, okay, you can spend the weekend with your friends at the slumber party or whatever, and the rest of us are going to go do the camp trip, but that's cool. We're not going to disown you because you don't want to go on the camp weekend. Right? Nobody says, if you don't go on this camp weekend, consider us dead to you. You don't do that. It's like, it's okay. We're not going to drag you along and bore you to death now that you're older and you're not really as into it. Maybe when you get a little bit past that phase, you'll come back and want to go camping again. So what I'm seeing with this trend is an opposite situation where the religion has found a way to convert the family into a tool. So now what you've got is a situation where the family members are putting the religion before everything. And they have this idea that God comes first. And if you saw P.Z. Myers' talks, it was, God on top of that tier. God is up on top somewhere, and then the family is just one of many tools that can be utilized and conformed into promoting this religion. And that's why these types of religions that have found ways to do this are not really good. It's not a good promotion of family values. It's not family value at all. It's a religious value that is absconded with the family and with what the family should be, and they're making it into something that is only worthwhile if it helps to promote the religion. And part of the reason that they get away with it is because Americans see value in church attendance. And I don't mean the kind of value that Hemant was talking about. I mean that when you tell somebody, I go to church, you get an automatic respect of who you are as a person, even though they don't know anything else about you. 2/3 of Americans think attendance is admirable, and nearly 9 in 10 called it acceptable, which I think most people probably would. And then 11% considered it useless, and this was in a recent survey. I wish that they had included detrimental, and I would be in that category. Even non-religious people, and this was what shocked me, people that are secular, or people that are may believe but they don't support religion, which would include church services, have favorable opinions. 80% of them believe that it's acceptable, and 43%, almost half of them, label it admirable still. And these are people that don't even attend themselves, but they look at other and they're like, oh, but that's admirable. Not just like it's okay. This is something to admire in a person, that they show up in a church building once a week. And 29% call it useless, and again, there's no detrimental. Reminds me a little bit of what Phil was talking about when he was saying about the woman that said, oh, I can't do that because that's a church member, so I couldn't actually call him out and threaten to report him to the, whatever, the Securities Commission, or whoever you'd support it, report them to. Because if you're going to church, you must be good. You must be an admirable person. And I don't know why simply going to church would make anybody admirable, but apparently that's the implication of walking into that building once a week. How many people, by show of hands, think that they have a reason to get up in the morning? I mean, you're here, so hopefully you had some reason. You've got some purpose. You get up and it's not just like, you know what, I don't know why I even continue to exist. Now, there are some people that deal with that. I mean, I don't mean to make light of it, but I think that on the whole, most of us are still existing because we feel like there's a reason for us to be existing. And if you're a member of a family, or if you've created your own family, show of hands if you think that there is some purpose to having kids, to having a family, to being a parent. Okay, yeah, I mean, I talk about in some of the other talks that I've given on this, if you are going to start a family, I would hope that you would think about why you're doing it. That you don't just say, I need to find a partner tomorrow and let's make a baby. It'd just be a cool thing to do, and I don't know why, but let's do it. And even if you had a happy accident, I would still think that in the months that you have to think about it, if you decide to go forward with that accident, that you would say to yourself, what's my plan? Not just, I guess I'll figure this out in 9 months, right? No, that's not very good. So most of us would say that we have a purpose for life, and most of us would say that there is a purpose for family. And I was surprised to find out we're all wrong. Focus on the Family, thankfully, is here to tell us why we're wrong and explain it. So Focus on the Family, this is from their website, so this is them describing themselves. Focus on the Family is a global Christian ministry dedicated to helping families thrive. We provide help and resources for couples to build healthy marriages that reflect God's design, and for parents to raise their children according to morals and values grounded in biblical principles. So they're not hiding what their mission is. I mean, they're very clear about what it is they're doing. Everything they do is Bible and God-oriented. Ultimately, we believe that the purpose of life, and this is important because I would hope that if you raised your hand about having purpose, that you would understand that what motivates you to get up in the morning may not motivate everybody else in this room to get up in the morning. That what you find joy in your life is not necessarily what everybody else finds joy in. That every individual is unique in what they want from life and what they expect from life and what their goals are and what they love and what they hate. None of us would have, I mean, it would be so weird to find two people that are just identically aligned on everything about what they think is, their reason for living. And yet, what this particular type of religion tries to do is to do this force fit of every single person into a single purpose. They're not saying it's the purpose of life for people who choose to believe in God and want to go that route, but if that's not for you, that's cool. I guarantee you that is not focused on the family's opinion. They want to say the purpose in life is to know and glorify God through an authentic relationship with His Son, Jesus Christ, and this purpose is lived out first within our own families. So the family is the primary unit of reflecting the real purpose, which is God. So again, you have the God in the Bible, and the family is underneath that, and it supports that structure. Then it extends in love to an increasingly broken world that desperately needs Him, and that's when you get into the evangelical status. So we move to another survey. Let's see if we get this right. So think about it this time. I don't want to see wrong answers. How many of you think that you understand what values are? Like you would think that if you were confronted with a moral dilemma, you would have some mechanism in place to try to think that through and consider it and come out with some sort of idea of how you should respond to that. And how many of you think that you do understand that you have some process? I mean, there are some people who are just like, if it feels good, that's what I do, and this feels wrong, so I'm not going to do it, and that's a little dangerous. I mean, we do have human empathy and sense of fairness and all of that, and a lot of times that works well. But sometimes you can be raised in such a way that this gets very distorted and people can make you view things in really hateful, racist, anti-ways, and you can feel bad about doing things that are sometimes the right thing to do. Just like Sam Singleton was talking about Huckleberry Finn wanting to report Jim for running away and turn him over to authorities because he had been raised in a society where it's wrong for the slave to run away. So he felt like it was wrong for him not to turn Jim in, and ultimately he had to think about it, and he came up with his own value and said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to get rid of that letter. And so it's important to understand where your values come from. Do y'all think you know where they come from, or? Okay, you're scared now because you think you're going to be wrong. Well, just in case, I'm here to tell you that there's a book that you can get your kid that will explain to them where Christian values come from, and every kid should know these, not just Christian kids, like every kid should know this, right? This is every kid's values, and this is where your values come from too. Number one, they explain their little values tree, because this is all set up in the mechanism of a values tree. And number two, the first value issue that we're going to talk about is how values begin with God. Right? So first you teach the little children that values begin with God. Somebody pointed out how interesting number 5 is too. Protect your child's mind. Right? Protect your child's mind from people like me is what that means. And then there's another part to the book, part 2. And if you look at part 2, the fruits of the values tree, number 1 that's listed under that is faith in God. Start out with faith in God, and then we can go from there. Now, if you look at this list, it doesn't seem that bad on the whole. Developing self-respect and confidence, I would hope that we would want, if we had kids, to develop self-respect and confidence with them. How to make decisions, how to deal with peer pressure. Then you've got the second part, respect, responsibility, moderation, honesty, integrity. I mean, these all sound like good things. And I remember one time someone telling me, if you want to poison a dog, you don't just hand them a wad of poison. You have to wrap it in bacon. And that's what this is. This is a list of bacon with a couple pieces of poison thrown in that you hand to your kid. And you say, I have all these great reasons for all these things that can be justified. And by the time I get done explaining the justifications and showing how this makes sense and how this is reasonable and how this works in life and works in the world, when I throw in God and faith, that kid's just going to swallow it because everything else made sense. So this must be true too. Plus it's mom and dad telling me, and it's the teacher in Sunday school telling me this, and there's this book about it that I'm seeing it and I'm reading, and so this must be correct. And this is how this gets in. You just mix it in there with the good things and you throw that stuff right there, and the kid doesn't question because all these other things mom and dad have great reasons for. So they must have great reasons for this too. They wouldn't lie to me. But it's not just Christianity. So Mission Islam was an interesting website, and it's very comprehensive. It has a lot of different sections on a lot of different issues that involve Muslim perspectives on just about everything you could think of. And I wanted to see what's the general idea of Islamic views of family values. And they're not that different. So most importantly, a home is an important means toward building the Muslim community. The society is made up from home, and it's the origin. The home is life, and life is society. If the home is strong, and the community will be strong in implementing the laws of Allah. So I do agree with them that you can't have a community made up of a huge amount of dysfunctional families. So if you want a healthy community, you do have to foster support for creating healthy families. But note that, again, the whole point is you want the strong families to build the strong communities to implement the religious goal that's up on top. It's about using the family to support the religion, not using religion as a mechanism to support the family. What's required is callers, and when they say callers, they mean people called, not people on a phone. So what is required is callers who are guides, students of knowledge, a righteous wife, mothers who can educate, to be born out of Muslim homes and then go into society in order to reform it. So these homes are going to go and reform us into the correct religious ideology. Again, just like focus on the family, we want to use these families to promote this religion, to go out in the community and spread this to more families. Righteous husband and wife share the primary and most important step towards building a righteous Islamic home, which is educating the children, should be done from an early age, starting with Quranic memorization. Just like that Christian book. Faith starts with faith in God, it's all values come from God, and right here you've got it again, only it's just the Muslim version of the same idea. Oh, you want to try again? How many people in here are secular parents? How many people in here had secular parents? Okay, a little bit less, but not bad. Do people in here on the whole, you don't have to have been a parent or be a parent or had parents who were secular, but do you believe that secular parents have something to offer in the way of family values? Show of hands. Man, you people are stupid. Grace Valley Christian Center, though, again, has stepped forward and offered to volunteer to correct your misconceptions. And this is a particularly beautiful one. If you love this as much as I do, I mean, I love when I see Christians that come out and they just lay it out there bone bare, because it is so ugly, and I love to see them just say it like it is. Since the fall of Adam and Eve, all people are born twisted and practice sin moment by moment. Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, David wrote of man's real condition, saying, "Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me, and even from birth the wicked go astray, from the womb they are wayward and speak lies." But don't abort them because they're innocent. Right? Innocent, little, corrupt, worthy of death things. It's so weird. Don't abort them, although they're worthy to die. It makes no sense. If a Christian father, this is you, dads, refuses to study the Word of God daily and diligently, he will have, daily, if he's not studying daily, he will have nothing to offer his family in terms of family values. So if you're a Christian dad and you are not studying the Bible every day, you've got nothing to offer. If you're secular, you're like on the negative range. You're probably like teaching them horrible things, right? He will instead subscribe and teach the secular orthodoxies prevalent in the world. Eli had another problem. This is the next bullet. Eli is an Old Testament character. Eli had another problem resulting from his neglect of the Bible. The Bible says no one should worship God alone, but the Bible says one should worship God alone. But in 1 Samuel 2:29, God asked, "Why do you honor your sons more than me?" And this is that whole thing again. It's like the family or religion. What is it? It's the religion. In Hebrew, the word for honor is shabad, heavy. It means, why do you make your sons heavy and not me? God is the glorious, heavy, all-worthy one. Think about his perfections and attributes. And I always have to take a deep breath for this one. His infinity, wisdom, transcendence, omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, holiness, justice, and goodness. He alone is the heavy one whom we should honor. He alone. Nobody else. Not your children, not your parents, not your grandparents, nobody else. I don't know about you, but if I was infinite, wise, transcendent, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, holy, just, and good, I would probably say, you don't even have to worry about me because I got it all, right? So why don't you go take care of your family, right? So is religion good for families? The following testimonials demonstrate what happens when members of a family no longer subscribe to the religion. Religion serves the families as long as the family members serve the religion. This is a really interesting thing that is sometimes easy to miss because it's very subtle, but this sub-bullet is important. The goal seems to be less about keeping all the members believers and more about pressuring them to keep pretending they believe whether they do or not. I don't think that the parents, it's usually parents doing it, but anybody that does it, I don't think they're doing this entirely consciously. But if a child were to come to a parent and say, I'm having suicidal thoughts, I don't know how many parents would say, you are such a disappointment. I don't even know why I let you live in this house if that's your attitude that you don't even want to live. Right? Who would say that? You would say, I'm so glad you came to me. Let's talk about what's going on here and see what we need to do because I don't want a dead child, right? You're important to me and I don't want you to die. If I believed that you were in danger of eternal hellfire and you came to me and said, I'm having doubts, I don't know if I believe this anymore. If I honestly cared about you and I honestly believe you were in peril of that, wouldn't I say, wow, I'm really glad you came to me. Can we sit down and talk about these doubts because I really want to know what's going on with you because I love you and I'm concerned. Is that what parents do? In families where the children are afraid to come forward and talk to them, where they're writing to strangers on the internet that they saw on YouTube for help and advice about what they're supposed to do because they can't even talk to these people that are their parents, right? And they're writing to me and saying, I don't know what to do because I'm scared of my parents. And the parents can't even be trusted to deal with these kids honestly and say, yeah, I do care if you don't believe. And I do want to talk. No, that's not what they get, right? They get thrown out of the house. They get told what a disappointment they are. They get told they're no child of mine. Then they get the rest of their relationship with their family being nothing but passive-aggressive preaching. Until, they have to finally just say, look, we can't talk about this, Mom and Dad. Can't talk about it with you anymore. And it's not just the kids, it's spouses, it's a lot of people. But they seem to just want the children to shut up and stop this and act like they still believe. They don't really seem interested in making a family situation where they can actually talk honestly about this with their kids. They look like they want to make a situation where you're afraid to come forward, where you know that you're going to be kicked out or you're going to be threatened with loss of love, loss of approval, loss of acceptance. They make it that way and they make sure you know it so that you know to keep your mouth shut if you don't believe this. So when families use religion as a primary or sole means of cohesion, they sometimes have a hard time adhering to members who can't share their beliefs. And we're going to go through and look at some of the emails that I've gotten at the Atheist Experience. And I pulled the ones that were most representative of the trends that we get. I tried to find ones that I thought, I've seen this letter 50 times, and so I'm going to use this one as an example. There's one in here that represents an extreme that we get less often, and I will point that out when we get to it, that this isn't something we hear a lot. I don't want people to think like we're getting this letter all the time, but the rest of them we are. And I just want to make sure, like when I first built this, there was over 50 slides. And I sat down and I started to go through it. I was like, I need to stop making slides. I need to stop pulling emails. And I need to see how long this talk is. And it went well over the hour. I was at the hour and I wasn't even halfway through the slides. And so I had to go through and cut them out. And then I went through it again. I had to cut out more. So there is the volume of this I can't even begin to express. But let's go ahead and take a look. So I labeled these. They will all have aspects of the others. But what I feel is the strongest aspect of the letter, I'm going to go ahead and include that as like a little title here. So this person wrote, my last question has to do with telling family I'm an atheist. Everybody in my family knows I'm an atheist except for my dad and grandmother. The reason I haven't told my grandma is because she's 75 and I'm afraid it would cause her to have a stroke or something and she would die. And I'm afraid if I told my dad, he would disown me. Should I tell them or just pretend to believe that stuff when I'm around them? They're both Jehovah's Witnesses, by the way. Do you have any ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? Okay, right here. You quit believing, will they cut you off?
Yes.
Yes.
If you're outside of the family, if you're not living at home.
Yeah, if they can, if they legally can. They will interact with you as little as possible. So she's representing this, and you know, I changed the names, but I tried to keep any kind of ethnicity or gender tied to the name. So Salvador is not kidding when he says he's afraid he's going to be disowned. This creates a situation where the child can't win. I'm just going to make this really clear. Children want their parents to accept and love them. This is as near a universal as you're ever going to see in humanity. Children want their parents to love and accept them. And when you are hiding something like this, which a lot of these atheist kids are, you're in a situation where you pretend to be what you're not so that you don't put the acceptance and love that you're getting at risk. The problem that the children come up with, the problem that arises, is that they realize that what's loved and accepted is not them. So they're in this situation where they're getting mom and dad's love and acceptance, but they're getting it for somebody they're not. And so they know it's not real. And so then what happens is they say, I want to come out. But the problem is the kid wants to come out and still be loved and accepted, and that's why they're afraid. Because they know that if they do come out, there's a chance they're going to lose that love and acceptance. And that's what terrifies these young people. No matter what they do, they're not going to be loved and they're not going to be accepted. And they know it, and it torments them. And that's why they're writing to people they've never met to ask about what they need to do in their families. It breeds an environment of dishonesty. Nobody can come out, people can't come and tell you the truth if they know they're going to get shit from you the moment they come forward. Nobody wants to go and talk to their boss and give them bad news, right? Nobody wants to walk up to somebody and tell them something that they know they're going to get backlash for. You have to work up to that, you're cringing, you go in there, I have to have this conversation. So when you create that in your family, what you do is you create an environment where people feel like, I can't go and talk to mom and dad, I can't be honest with mom and dad because they will lose their shit. So it's not about wanting your children to be able to talk to you, wanting your family to be able to be honest with each other. It's about not wanting that and discouraging that, and that's a really sick value for a family. It makes a family sick. I am a closet atheist. I sense this animosity every time I try to even question my dad's assumptions and ones for my family as a whole. It sickens me to think that if they knew I didn't believe, they literally think I would go to hell. I don't want them to think bad things about me. I plan to never tell them I'm an atheist, although my brother already suspects it. The one time I told my dad I was an atheist, it was a disaster. I just gave up on the whole idea of being honest and started telling him I believed. That's what I do now. What should I do? I can't find peace in all of this. What do you tell him? What do I say to Jake? How does Jake find peace in all of this? And what should Jake do? And I don't know Jake. I've never been to Jake's house. I don't know Jake's family. But I know other families. I know what my family was like. I know what other people's families were like. I know what can happen. And I don't know what's going to happen to Jake. And all I can say is think about the worst thing you think is a reasonable outcome of this, and if you're prepared to endure that, then tell your parents. If you're not, wait. You can always tell them a year from now if you feel better about it then. Definitely if you have fear about talking to them, don't tell them while you're living at home. Bad idea. I come from an Orthodox Sikh family. Anybody here know much about Sikhism? It's an Eastern religion. It's got the kinder, gentler, sort of nicey feel to it that people like. The basic premise is God created us, or there's something created us perfect. So all of us are just as we should be, right? So you're born with what we would consider a birth defect. That's okay. That's how God made you. You're fine. And the problem is there's certain weird things we would consider culturally weird that they're not allowed to alter about themselves because God made you that way. So if you have a beard, you just keep it growing. You can't shave it. You can't trim it. God gave you the beard, so you just let it grow. And that's cool if you're into that. But if you're raised in it and you're not into that, it can become very uncool. He says, I come from an Orthodox Sikh family. I cannot cut my hair or shave. My parents understand I'm a non-believer. I feel very embarrassed when someone sees me in a turban and asks about my religion. I want to cut my hair, but how do I break it to my parents? This is a student living abroad. His parents live in India. He's going to school. I believe it's in Australia. It comes up a little bit later. I just make sure that's clear. He's going to college abroad. They are very religious, and I can't imagine their reaction. I love them, and they don't force me to be religious, but I don't think they'd like me to cut my hair. No one in my family has ever done such a thing. I fear I will be an outcast and scorned by everyone. My hair is unmanageable. I waste a lot of time combing and washing it, tying it, then tying a turban. I have a lot of hygiene problems with it. I don't want to keep it, but I love my parents. What do I do? I edited this way down. Guy wrote so much about how much he hated his hair. It was unbelievable, the problems that he described. Now, I can't imagine how long your hair would be if you never cut it. And I don't know what kind of a hassle that would be. I mean, I sometimes am ripping my hair out and saying, that's it, I'm shaving my head tomorrow, right? And I don't know what this is like, to have that kind of hair to contend with. But it was not funny for Guy. I mean, it's funny for us. It's not funny for Guy. And I read this and I thought, wait a minute. My parents understand I'm a non-believer. Your parents know that and they're cool and you're worried about saying you want to cut your hair? Like, that's ridiculous. Guy, you're being silly. Right? I mean, most people are worried about them finding out you're a non-believer and you're saying your parents are cool with it. Well, they sound like cool people. Why don't you tell them? I love them and they don't force me to be religious and I'd like, I respect them, but I'm not into, I don't believe, and so I would like to go ahead and just stop the rituals and let me just go on with this. And that's what I told Guy. Let them know the stress that you're under the way you've let me know, and they will love you and they will support you, and they sound like open, liberal-minded people that are cool with you even when you say you don't believe. Boy, was I wrong. Guy took my advice. I tried convincing them with what you said. Unfortunately, it didn't work. My mom said I should consider her and Dad dead if I ever cut my hair. I live in Australia and they're in India. She said she'd not want to see me ever again if I did anything of that sort. My mom said that after she and Dad die, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. I guess I'll have to be what I am, happy or not. Thank you anyway. Don't cut your hair or we don't know you. That's really wild. Now, people have pointed out that there's probably cultural integration with this. It's not probably just religious. It's probably like a religion, cultural, intertwined issue. But still, I mean, when you would say to your child, cut your hair and you're not even my child anymore, this is what can happen. This is what this can do to your head and to your family. I'm an atheist married to a conservative religious Baptist. I once was religious myself. And that's normally how this kind of a pairing comes about. You've got two people that are very into the religion, they get married, and partway through somebody loses the belief. And then you find out, like, oh, I'm in a really bad situation now. We have several children together, and she is emphatic they attend church every week. Being sick is the only reason they will not go, since she doesn't want to spread germs. It's not because the kids are sick, because she doesn't make the other kids sick. My children know I do not believe in God. I have had some conversations with my two older sons, 10 and 8. The 8-year-old is like talking to a brick wall. He will flat out tell me the Bible is right, God wrote it, so it is correct. The 10-year-old will talk more openly. The last 2 times I've talked to my 10-year-old, he's gotten upset and started to cry. And again, these are common themes that we get. The last time I pressed him to understand why he was crying, I found out he believes I am going to hell and is upset by this. The 10-year-old believes this, and that's the problem. The 10-year-old believes Dad is going to be tortured forever, and he loves his dad, and this concerns him naturally as the man's child. The 8-year-old, however, is sociopathic. My 8-year-old has also told me I'm going to hell, but is unemotional about it. To me, this is unacceptable, and my children should not be taught this. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty far. Yeah, you're going to be tortured forever, Dad. Too bad for you. It's your choice to be an atheist. I mean, the 8-year-old has swallowed this hook, line, and sinker. He's going to be the one that, he's fine. I'm up in heaven watching you suffer, and I'm going to be cool with it, Dad. You know, the 10-year-old is a human being, and this is torturing him now. I'm not sure where they've gotten this, if someone has told them or if they've figured it out from the teachings at church. So he's specifically concerned, has somebody said to them, your dad is going to burn in hell? Or have they simply put together that dad's not a believer and hell is over here for people that aren't Christians, and oh my gosh, there's a connection. So he's not sure that it's been like an outright, connection made for the child. It's apparent someone is coaching the 10-year-old in his responses. I'm not sure if it's my wife or someone else, like a pastor or Sunday school teacher. I also know they pray for me at church. I'm considering telling my wife I do not want them praying for me anymore in their church and to remove me from any prayer lists I'm on. I feel this will help, as my kids will not hear them praying for me every week. And I think that's an excellent idea. I don't think the children need to be reminded weekly about dad's, threat of hell. My children are also homeschooled, which I'm not a big fan of either. I hate to suggest divorce, but this is where we're heading. I mean, can you imagine living with this in your house all the time? It's just a black cloud. I'm looking for any input you all there or the viewers and listeners can give. I guess to wrap up, how far do I go to prevent the brainwashing and undermining of my children? This is going to destroy the marriage. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that this marriage is not going to work if things don't change, and I don't see them changing. He's not going to start believing tomorrow, and she's not going to drop it. So this is where you're at, and this is where you're going to stay, and there's no happy answer. And I'm so glad for hotlines like Recovery from Religion, because I have no credentials to be advising these people. Yeah, that's good. They're a good group. Having resources that we can send people to say, hey, this group can help you out, these people are trained to talk to you, makes me feel so much better than me handing out advice and hoping that I don't tell something to someone that ruins their life. This is the one that's kind of rare. We don't get as much descriptions of physical abuse. When we do, it can either be from minor to severe, but it happens. I still hide my true identity as an atheist because I am Middle Eastern from Saudi Arabia. My family is very Islamic. My father used to hit me and abuse me in my childhood, to pray and worship Allah. He used to tell me I did not pray enough to Allah, and Allah will punish me and make me suffer in this life and the afterlife. My father wanted me to be an Islamic cleric because I used to read a lot of books, but I disagreed. I wanted to become an engineer. I'm a sophomore, so this is my current major degree. So good for Omar for going and pursuing what he wanted to do, and despite his upbringing. Threats and manipulation. You always get that right. Pascal's wager comes right out. It's like the first card played half the time, more than half the time. Over the years, I've deconverted into atheism. Recently, my wife saw me watching your show and said, if you become an atheist, I'm going to leave you. Again, she saw him watching the show. She thought, hey, this could be leading somewhere that I don't like. And instead of opening a dialogue and having a conversation and being able to have honest, open talk with her spouse, she decided to throw down a threat so that he keeps his mouth shut, because that's what you have to do. Keep your mouth shut. We don't need your dissent. I don't know how to make her understand what an atheist truly is because she doesn't ever want to discuss religious topics with me. Is there anything I can say to make her understand I'm not bad or evil? We have a 4-year-old son who told me this morning that Mommy said God was everywhere. I'm concerned. I don't want my children indoctrinated into believing something for which there is no proof, but I have to be careful what I say to my son about God because my wife will lose it and leave me. How can someone intelligent and caring like my wife love a man, Jesus, she's never met, yet be willing to divorce the man who's been there for her through thick and thin for 12 years? And I think that's an excellent question, Carl. Somebody convinced her to put God up here and you here, even though this thing isn't even there. This means more to her than you do. It means more to you than her family, right? More to her than the commitments she made with you. That's the goal with these religions. They want to make sure that the family stays in line and that every member participates exactly like they're supposed to in order to support the religion. I would love to like your page, but I really can't let other friends and family see me do that. I've recently come out to family and most friends, but they're still simmering over it. And when Katie says she came out, it wasn't quite what she planned. I was tagged on Facebook in a photo taken of me at a PastaCon. After I was tagged, things got extremely ugly. My father has still not spoken to me. My in-laws originally told my husband to divorce me. They've come around since. Anyway, emotions are high, and everyone hates me now. We have another son here who thinks dad's going to hell. This was an interesting one, so I'm going to go ahead and include this. I have to start wrapping, but let me just, this one was extremely clever. My mom told me my aunt had a dream. In the dream, it was revealed that all of Mom's 3 children would be together in the afterlife. This means that either I was going to drag my sister and brother to hell with me, or I was going to come back to the faith and be with them in heaven. Right? So now it's not just you. Your brother and sister's eternal souls rely on what you're going to do. So now there's this extra pressure of it's not just you answering for yourself, but you're now making a decision for them. My mom started telling me it was really, really important I return to the flock because she does not want all of us going to hell. This was followed by how some in our family want me out of the picture so my satanic influence doesn't get to my siblings. I've considered lying and just saying I'm a Christian again, but I'm a notoriously bad liar, and that just isn't sustainable. Yeah, it's just not good. Teen atheist, his father's a minister with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's Anna. And she's dealing with a mother who basically says that she's happy that Anna still goes because she's the only one who still goes, and her mother looks to her as the only child that takes an interest in Jesus, except Anna doesn't. And so she doesn't want to break her mother's heart, but her other siblings have left, and Anna wants to leave too, and she's the last one, so she gets the additional pressure. Now, in this particular case, I doubt the mother's trying to pressure Anna. She probably doesn't even know. Anna doesn't believe. She probably is basically saying, you're the good one, the only good one left. But it still puts pressure on Anna to not tell the truth. Let's see. New York State. He's a theist most of his life. Orthodox Jewish. And he started questioning his faith. And the newfound skepticism is wreaking havoc on him psychologically. He's married with kids, and he can't come out publicly with a skeptical attitude without destroying his family, because the family is the tool to support the religion. My mother and 2 siblings disowned me. When the topic of religion came up toward my children, my mother felt the need to say, well, I'll be the one to teach them about God. I told her this was not going to happen. She replied, well, good luck having children with no morals. There's just no respect. It's all fear, rejection. I mean, it's just more and more of this. She doesn't want her children to endure what her boyfriend went through. He's afraid to leave the church since that would be like committing social suicide. His friends and families would leave his life, and he knows this, and so do I. Just abandonment. I mean, it's just like endless. Endless. Interfaith marriages that remain with mixed faith partners, this is another recent survey, shot up 40% from 20% in the 1960s. Raising interfaith families is increasingly common and supported by a growing number of grassroots organizations. The reason I put this in here, and I'm not going to go through all of this because we're out of time, but the reason I put this in here is just to say that there used to be this idea that if you married interfaith, which was a lot more rare than it is today, you would convert, or your spouse would convert, but somebody would convert and then you'd raise the family like that. But now what's happening is we're seeing a rise in people getting married and they're interfaith, and they're keeping the interfaith aspect so that you stay Jewish, I stay Christian, and we'll just raise the kids and I'll take them to church, you take them to temple. It's fine. Because these are people that aren't really caring that much about, indoctrinating the kids. It's just more about a more liberal brand of religion. So I'm hoping that trend represents more openness toward different ideas, although it's still a question as to whether or not believing nothing is going to be kind of grouped in with that happy mix, or if it's just going to be about any faith is okay as long as you have faith, which we all often hear. And there's other points I'd love to make, but I'm out of time, and I don't even know if I have time for questions at this point. I'm done.
Tracy Harris, ladies and gentlemen.